In this video today, you are going to learn about how I went from a young teenage girl wandering with not a care in the world to a woman with lots of purpose and power to help those who have gone through this journey. And hopefully the message will be powerful enough to help avoid women having to go through this journey. Yes, today I'm going to be talking about a few very sensitive issues that occur to many women all around the world in just different ways. And for me, it started off as a very young girl having a young friend admitting to me that her brother's friend had molested her. And then a year went by, and another friend of ours, it was a group of us, told me that her father had raped her when she was a child. And then a couple months later, another one came to me and told me that her uncle had molested her. And then finally, the last one of my friends told me that her mother's boyfriend would always touch her while he was on her lap in front of her mother. And sure enough, this is a horrible irony, but they say your 5 best friends make up who you are. And at the time, I thought, wow, I must be really lucky. I've never had anything horrible like that happen to me. And about a year and a half later, sure enough, hanging out with the same 5 girls, I had a tragic and horrific evening with a horrible rape on New Year's Eve. Something that I didn't realize was going to change my entire life. I tried to brush it off. I tried to act strong. I tried to avoid talking about the situation whenever I could. I probably haven't really even talked about it in depth like I maybe should have for healing purposes. But one thing that I did notice was that this situation that I thought that I had overbeaten, overcome, had actually taken over my life. It was making me make all the wrong choices when I was choosing a mate. So as a young teenager, choosing my first boyfriend, I didn't make very good choices. I didn't notice the qualities and the unqualities that I didn't want in somebody. And that relationship was very destructive. He was a very jealous man, and I was always having to defend myself and represent and say that I was innocent on something that I didn't even do, but he was just making up in his mind. And it caused something inside of me, besides the fact that I used to bang my head on the wall to try to prove my point, which proved nothing at all. Over time, this situation and the choices I made in choosing a mate became more and more destructive to my own well-being, to my own confidence, to my own thought, to my own dreams. I even stopped learning how to dream. I didn't even know what it was that I wanted out of life. So I followed the path of being a photographer and burned myself out to the point where I even hated taking pictures. My ex-husband told me so long that I was wasting my time getting a degree from the University of Miami in photography, constantly telling me I was wasting my time and I was working 2 jobs, went to school full time, and I had a little baby that we raised together. But every argument was, what are you doing? You're just wasting your time. You're just wasting your time. By the time I graduated from University of Miami, I didn't even want to be a photographer anymore. And we got married, and not that long later, we divorced. But only for me to end up in an even worse relationship with a drug addict who was crazy. And he tried to almost kill me, which we're not even going to go into that story today. But that is another story that we will talk about one day. My daughter witnessed that. She had to go through a lot of therapy, and it was very hard for her. And then the last relationship that I was in, where I finally figured out, after 7 miserable years of being with somebody that made me feel so little, and made me feel so horrible, and made me lose so many friends, and made me so sheltered to the world, he would do it in such a way that he would tell me, he started off by saying that I was a queen and I was royal, and then slowly would destruct me by saying, you're not queen enough because, you're not good enough because, I can't be married to you because, you can't meet my family and my friends because. And it was always a story to keep me secretly hidden from the world. And one day I found out, after having 2 children with him, that he lived another life with another woman, with other children. And that was one of the biggest wake-up calls I ever had. It was the biggest slap in the face, and I was devastated, and I shed many tears, and I had many horrible evenings by myself with the babies, crying day in and day out, and how did I get myself into this situation? But one day along this way, I discovered the power of personal development. And after a year and a half of been listening